All right, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack exactly how the new 2026 environmental legislation is going to impact your daily life and your own neighborhood. We're looking at the National Environmental Amendment Bill of 2026, which is basically a massive, ground-up overhaul of the original 1980 Act. Now, I know, reading through hundreds of pages of legal text isn't exactly most people's idea of a fun afternoon, but what's hidden inside this document is actually a fundamental redesign of your environmental rights. We aren't just talking about some abstract concept of conservation here. We're talking about your health, your property, and yes, your tax dollars. To set the stage a bit, this monumental shift in environmental law was introduced and executed under the NPP government. It's really important to grasp the origins of this legislation because it represents a huge pivot in how policy is actually executed on the ground. The sheer scale of these amendments, we are talking about everything from hazardous waste down to neighborhood noise. It shows a comprehensive effort to completely modernize how environmental protections are enforced. So we're going to slice this massive document into 6 quick parts to see exactly what's in it for you. 1, a new environmental era. 2, strengthening the watchdogs. 3, cracking down on pollution. 4, stopping nuisance and damage. 5, holding producers accountable. And finally, 6, your voice in the future. Okay, starting with part 1, a new environmental era. Let's look at how this sets the foundation for our new reality. The core philosophy of this entire legislation shifts away from these minor slaps on the wrist to some really severe accountability and public empowerment. Under the old framework, companies might just factor in a small environmental fine as a quote-unquote cost of doing business. It was literally cheaper for them to just pollute and pay the tiny fine than to actually fix the underlying problem. Well, this amendment bill completely obliterates that loophole. It raises the stakes so drastically that compliance is now the only financially viable option. For you, that means a massively decreased risk of living next door to a facility that decides it's just cheaper to dump toxic waste into your local stream. Moving on to part 2, strengthening the watchdogs. Because, let's be honest, a law is only as good as the people enforcing it. Historically, our environmental authorities have sometimes lacked the teeth to take on big polluters or uncooperative local governments. Well, not anymore. The Central Environmental Authority, the CEA, can now legally take local authorities straight to the magistrate's court if they fail to implement critical environmental directives. Local governments can no longer just ignore the rules. Have you ever complained to your local council about illegal dumping, only to have them totally drag their feet? Under Section 12 of this new bill, the CEA Director General can issue a directive for enforcement, and if the local authority ignores it, the CEA can literally take them to court to force compliance. Plus, the CEA's core membership has been bumped up to 5 members, bringing in a much broader base of expertise. The watchdogs finally have some serious bite. Right, part 3, cracking down on pollution. Let's talk about the money. This is how the bill completely attacks the financial incentives of polluting our communities. To understand the scale of this crackdown, get a load of this maximum fine for unauthorized hazardous waste management: 20 million rupees. If a commercial industry generates or handles prescribed hazardous waste without a license or breaks their license conditions, they are looking at up to 20 million rupees in fines. And if they just keep doing it, they face an extra 150,000 rupees for every single day the offense continues, plus potential prison time. That is an incredibly strong shield protecting your local ecosystem from dangerous chemicals. And it doesn't stop there. Unauthorized activities in newly declared protected wetlands now carry fines of up to 10 million rupees. Wetlands are literally natural sponges. They absorb heavy rainfall and protect our neighborhoods from devastating floods. Before, developers might quietly fill in a marsh to build something. Now, under Part 4E of the amendment, doing that without express approval carries a jaw-dropping 10 million rupee penalty, plus, and this is crucial, a mandatory court order to restore the wetland to its original condition. So no, they can't just pay the fine and keep the building. They have to tear the whole thing down and fix the damage. Furthermore, factories are now going to be charged a wastewater fee that is directly tied to the specific pollutant load they discharge. This is the polluter pays principle in its absolute purest form, laid right out in the new Section 23FF. The government will literally calculate the fee based on the amount and the toxicity of the wastewater a factory pumps out. Fail to pay within 30 days? Boom, you get hit with a surcharge. What this means for you is cleaner rivers, streams, and groundwater, because factories are now highly motivated to invest in better water treatment tech just to lower their daily operating bills. Okay, part 4. Stopping nuisance and damage. Let's shift from macro pollution to everyday neighborhood protections. Because this is where the bill really hits closest to home. We've all dealt with local annoyances that seem impossible to stop through normal bureaucratic channels. But imagine a scenario where someone is illegally building a structure that blocks a natural waterway in your neighborhood. In the past, you'd file a complaint, and it could take literal years of red tape to resolve while the flooding gets worse. Now, under the new Section 24BA, the Director General can present a certificate directly to a magistrate proving a threat exists, and the magistrate can order the immediate demolition of that structure. If the owner refuses, the court sends the fiscal or police to tear it down within days. It is swift, decisive action. And what about noise and shaking? Have you ever lived near a quarry or a massive construction site where the constant vibration literally rattled your windows and cracked your walls? Section 23RA introduces super strict new standards for ground and air vibration. If an industrial project exceeds these limits, they face fines up to ₹1,000,000. And importantly, an additional 5,000 rupees for every day they continue to shake your house. The court will also force them to take corrective measures and prove they've stopped the nuisance. You finally have a concrete legal right to a stable, quiet foundation. Moving to Part 5, holding producers accountable. What happens to the electronic waste and packaging you throw away? For way too long, companies have manufactured products, sold them to us, and then completely washed their hands of the consequences once that product became trash. Think about all the plastic packaging, dead batteries, and broken electronics filling up our landfills. Up until now, your local council, using your tax money, had to figure out how to clean that up. The new Part IV of the bill introduces Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR. This means the entity that makes or imports the product is now legally on the hook for tracking it, recycling it, or safely disposing of it. If they don't comply, hefty fines are coming their way. It forces corporations to design greener products and takes that massive financial burden right off the shoulders of the public. Finally, Part 6, Your Voice in the Future. Let's look at how this legislation legally guarantees your seat at the table. We've talked a lot about top-down enforcement, but environmental protection is also about bottom-up participation. Outlined in the brand new Part 4D, any major government policy must be open to a 30-day public comment window. Whenever the government wants to roll out a massive new strategy or program that could impact the environment, they can't just do it in secret anymore. They must prepare a strategic environmental assessment report. They are legally required to publish notices in Sinhala, Tamil, and English newspapers, telling you exactly where to go to read it. You then have 30 days to inspect it, raise your concerns, and submit comments. And get this, the government actually has to take those public comments into consideration before making a final decision. You are no longer just a bystander. So, with much stronger watchdogs, absolutely massive penalties for polluters, and guaranteed public participation, the real question is, how will you step up to protect your community's future? This 2026 amendment bill isn't just a list of rules for corporations, it is a literal toolbox for citizens. From giving you a 30-day window to challenge massive government projects to ensuring the factory down the street pays for every single drop of polluted water they discharge, this legislation fundamentally shifts power back to the public. The laws are on the books, the fines have been magnified, the enforcement is streamlined. The next step is up to all of us to stay informed, report those violations, and actively use these incredible new rights we've just explored. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious and stay involved.